Well, welcome everybody from USDA, EPA. We have folks from different parts of the agencies that are here. A lot of this is revolving around EPA and what's happening with you guys. We'll go ahead just give them another about 30 seconds for folks to be joining in, popping in here. We welcome you guys. Awesome. And we do have two folks here from iAdvantage Software. We have Daniel Thompson. Say hey, Daniel.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for joining.
And we have Jamie Blackburn, the director.
Yeah, director.
All right.
Maybe misdirection today.
So this session does include GSA vendor product information that's being used, piping it up the stream, right? It's going upstream to the EPA e-enterprise, and it being collected for pilot programs. If you guys want to be involved in that, highly encourage you to hop on if you can, if you're doing research. And it's not affiliated or endorsed by any GSA. This is from GSA. That's why I have to say it. Or any agencies provided to you, all the participatory people here. It's voluntary for you, and it's not an indication or endorsement for any vendor. We do have some objectives today. They're a little bit different. We've done a bunch of these, engaged folks from EPA, from USDA, different sub-organizations. This is to establish pilots to support you scientists, you researchers, you data collectors that are out there. And there's good reason for this because, hey, that's what eEnterprise is starting to be working on. A subsegment of this has to do with your data collection, right, guys? That's what one of the subsections is. So, submission review and award of that. Don't stress on the award side. Simplified acquisitions. We're working with different folks in the organization. We're going to go upstream, and that's what iAdvantage is going to be doing, taking it upstream to get involved with the e-enterprise system. All right, so let's find out what is happening here. This meeting's being recorded. Okay, I got that. It popped up on my screen. All right, so why are you here today? Are you in R&D and have a current data collection? Maybe you're involved in data collection. Maybe you're in management and just want your data to work. Well, maybe you're tired of scrubbing data. Or maybe you're in procurement, want to know about eStudy and these pilot programs we're talking about, or maybe, just maybe, your boss made you come. And then if you've ever been to a GovBrief briefing before, we have had some folks that have been here, especially from EPA. I know there's that have been involved in the conversation. So we really, really appreciate you guys joining us back again. If you are, while folks are filling that out, tell us a little bit about iAdvantage, Jamie Blackburn.
Okay, so we've been around since 2003. We're headquartered here in Cary, North Carolina, right between, if you look at NC State to our east, Duke and UNC are to our west. We've had 30 years of collecting data, capturing it, managing it, reporting on it. And a lot of this data has ended up at the EPA from a lot of our large sponsor types. And all of this from the USDA to EPA is all driven by compliance and having GLP capable software. And we were a company started by scientists, and we are really meant for science users.
And that's important because we're actually going to be talking about scientific methodology as solving some of the problems and why we're doing the pilot and helping folks get involved in that pilot part of this GovBrief. And you guys are a small business, and as I mentioned before, a GSA contract holder. You can see some of the organizations that they worked with, and if you're with EPA, you probably recognize those guys because they're involved in a lot of things, right, guys?
That's right. Or they can talk to the people in the field, the scientists in the field who can hear about us.
I guarantee you that. So I just popped the session docs in there. You have a copy of the briefing presentation capabilities, but we are going to be honing in on some of what the FAIR Act. We'll talk a little bit about that, right, Jamie?
That's right.
And eEnterprise docs and links. If you're not familiar with eEnterprise, we're going to get you a little bit familiarized with it. Hopefully, it'll be helpful for you and number one, so that you're involved and included in the conversation. We love Q&A. We love all the comments. You can pop it in the chat. Q&A I usually see first, and I'll do my best to be able to pay attention to what's happening there. If you don't want to talk and have everybody and their mother see what you have to say, send it to this address. It'll be there the whole time. info@iAdvantagesoftware.com. And these guys here, Daniel and Jamie, will get it to the appropriate people, potentially even scientists, right, guys? Because you have a bunch of folks that are scientists on your team, right?
That's correct.
And that you've been doing this for a long time. So we appreciate you joining us. We'll give another 5, 4, 3 for the poll. 2, 1. Any last minute stragglers? All right. So here's what we got, guys. 35% are involved in actually doing the data collection. That's good news.
That's great.
That's good news. And some folks are in management and want the data to work every time, right? Tired of scrubbing data? That should have been 100% of everybody, I think. But besides that, that's okay. Maybe you had a single choice. That's what you got. All right. And maybe you're in procurement. Got folks in procurement. That's fantastic. And 20% have been here before. So welcome back to continuing the conversation on working and getting this data to work with you guys. That's fantastic. So let's talk about this a little bit. E-Enterprise is a relatively new concept, and for those of you who are not familiar with the E-Enterprise, EPA E-Enterprise, there's a couple pieces that are underlined that we're going to be focusing on. And I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it. And that I'm going to read this because this includes states, tribes, EPA share similar goals for the environments. The idea is pulling all this information together with the authority to implement protection is also shared, making collaboration among partners. We're going to talk about collaboration and ways to ensuring that simultaneously address the following common goals and desire. This is what your data can do for you, right? So establish a more collaborative relationship. Oftentimes you're getting multiple people coming in from multiple angles, right, Jamie?
That's right.
Yep. And so still respecting the program responsibility, because you still have your internal responsibilities, right? And talking about states and tribes for early and meaningful engagement with EPA on key issues. That's the whole idea. Implementation and delegated programs for primary jurisdictional authority, so you can do what you need to do if you're with EPA and assist other folks that are outside the EPA, and then other folks outside the EPA can assist you. And incorporate the user's perspective. You, scientists, you, data collectors, you, researchers, people that are managing studies. This is what is important. You guys, to improve the customer service and institute business-friendly approaches. Absolutely. So then also talking about delivering the environmental programs and services with greater efficiency and effectiveness, streamlining and simplifying the processes. That's what it's all about. Daniel, this is what you guys are all about, right?
Absolutely.
Greater efficiency, effectiveness, right? And that's why it's so important to be included in the pilot if you want to be. Prevent or eliminate backlogs. We're going to talk exactly how backlogs happen, especially as it applies to data, won't we?
That's right. Absolutely.
How about this? Avoiding duplication of efforts. How about we use the data over and over and over again and make it easy for everybody to be able to use that data? That is a super, super idea. And for and limited resources. And nobody in here is coming in here saying, now, the budget was just passed last week. We got extra money we can just spend all over the place. That's what everybody's saying, right? All the procurement people just passed out. That's what they just did, right? So accomplish important environmental goals, absolutely positively, in the face of constraint and sometimes decreasing budgets. We're seeing it. And achieve improved and measurable environmental progress and results. Positively, we want to help you do that. That's what the E-Enterprise, that's coming directly from E-Enterprise. And all of this revolves around clean data. And we all know what happens when the data isn't clean, because everybody here, I guarantee you, everybody here is touching some data that doesn't meet that first word of clean. Am I right? Everybody agree with that? And that's why we're here. That's why you're here, and that's why we got these folks here. So, Jamie, tell us some of the big data challenges
Sure.
just to recap for folks that we've seen over the past couple of years.
So I think everyone's aware of the huge growing data, but it's really this fire hose where we keep drinking from the same fire hose and it keeps getting bigger. And so right now, the best estimates are 463 exabytes. And just to give you a sense of an exabyte, so if an exabyte was the size of the Earth, I'm sorry, if a gigabyte, which we all know, we all have probably hard drives or phones with gigabytes on them. And that seems, achievable. That's not a big deal. But exabyte would be the size of the sun. So that gives you a sense of how big this data is getting. And it's backed up every night and it continues to grow. And data scientists, the biggest thing they want is they want good collection of data. They want it to be very much grabbed and captured, but we also want to repurpose it. We want to be able to have it as living data so we can reuse it. So we want good documentation. And because we don't have good documentation, it's like we throw away data sometimes because we don't know about it. And this is where FAIR principles come in, being able to give metadata about data and such like that. And then there's the huge gaps. I might see address differently today than I did 5 years ago in technology, right? It used to be nowadays, we just look at if Google approves it, it's like, yes, the right address because Google already checked that address out. Where it used to be, we used to say, well, is this part of the first line or is it the second line, and should we break it up? Well, good data science will tell you got to have a good plan for collecting data. You got to actually plan this all out, and it's really hard to get insights when you're spending all your time scrubbing data and going back and trying to figure out what they were thinking when they first collected it. So for you to grow your data, it's going to give you business intelligence. Before AI is on top of us completely, you have to get ready for this growing, this scaling. And it won't scale if we don't do a good process of collecting it and so forth. And Daniel's going to tell us a little bit about the right way to do these things.
So you mentioned AI, right?
Right.
And that's like the panacea. Everybody's looking at AI saying it's going to solve all our problems. I'm telling you, everybody, if you haven't checked it out and see what happens when bad data meets AI,
that's right.
It just explodes into data that, yes, you can get to a place where you can clean some of that stuff, but I'm telling you. So how do we get here? And this is going to be the example of how we got here and why this is all happening. So we're gonna do this as our own case study. So how do you collect your data? Do you do it with spreadsheet? Do you do it by phone and email? Do you use paper forms or a survey tool? And I'm telling you, we already know what the answers are going to be. And some of this stuff, I'm telling you, is wild. And
maybe they're different.
As many as you want, right?
That's right.
But we already know what the answer is because we've already talked to so many folks at EPA and FDA and USDA. We know exactly what's happening here. And this is exactly why. And what we're going to be getting to in just a moment, because this is a pretty simple question. So go ahead. Where do you get it? Spreadsheet, phone/email, paper forms, or a survey tool? And look at those numbers. Exactly what we thought, right? Right, James?
I know where I'd put my money.
Yeah.
And because of this, look at that. Somebody's cranking up the survey tool just to try to sway it a little bit. That's all right. That's good. So we'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any last stragglers all right, boom. All right, here's what we got. 85% spreadsheet. How many of us are shocked about that? How many are shocked?
And spreadsheets, it's a very generic term nowadays, right? So it could be Tableau, it could be Excel, it could be a lot of different products. And that's pretty cool in itself, but it's still a spreadsheet.
You're right. There's a lot of functionality in a spreadsheet. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why we use them.
I mean, when we started our company, I believe the scientists were first all paper-based. And going electronic was a big deal. But when before they went electronic, they said, wow, we can get a bunch of fax machines and send them out. So at least we're not asking that one about.
Fax machines are one step up from stone tablets.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So applying scientific methodology. We mentioned this before.
So
Scientific, you guys are born from scientists, right?
that's
That's
right.
the whole idea.
That's
So,
right. We're driven by the science methodology. We're driven by scientists who tell us how they think.
and the first part is what? Define the problem or
Or the
requirement,
data,
right?
data requirement. That's right. What kind of data? What are you going to use it? Where is it going to go? And I hate to say it, but you almost know what the answers that you're going to be collecting. Just like we just did with our poll. We said, yeah, we knew where everyone's going to put their eggs. They're going to put it into the basket of spreadsheets.
Yeah. And that creates a lot of problems. Spreadsheets do.
That's right.
But scientific methodology can actually help, even if you're still just using spreadsheets, by the way. Nothing wrong with that. This isn't
That's
like,
right.
hey, a smackdown for people who are using spreadsheets. We use them, you use everybody uses them, right? But let's talk about the design part, because if we get the design right, then what happens?
Right. Yeah. So I would argue that designing is probably the most crucial piece. Probably where you should spend the majority of your time. In today's world, things move so fast. You're just trying to, check off a box that you got this data collection done or whatever task it is. So a lot of times we go to spreadsheets because it's quick and easy, right? And everybody knows them. But the one thing with spreadsheets is not a lot of time is spent designing them. You put your columns, your rows in, people fill in the data, and that's as far as it goes. Here at iAdvantage, our product is designed around integrating a design workflow into the product that actually designs your data collection. And one of the things that does is it maximizes creativity so that you're not stuck spending time, doing repetitive tasks over and over and over. And as well as that, one of our scientists has said for the longest time that a scientific software needs to enable the scientist. So we like to say it's designed for scientists by scientists. One of the other things that our software is able to do is you're able to quickly create studies that has all of the study parameters directly from the protocol. So you don't have to, have the end user enter that in over and over on the back end. So another crucial piece would be the security of data. Spreadsheets don't really have anything like that built in. There are some plugins out there that you can use, but most people just have, a blank state when it comes to spreadsheets. So I would put all my eggs, if I had a basket, in the designing piece of this process.
And if you do it right on the front end, like you were talking about the security of the data and also the integrity, right?
Right, absolutely.
We'll probably get the integrity of the data too, because I know when you're dealing with, and you meant security, that means nobody can just go in there and manipulate it just because, hey, I really don't think that it should say that, or maybe changing some things. And as we're dealing with, for lack of a better term, fake news, right? As we're dealing with just the regular world, just pumping out a whole bunch of things, we need government data to be solid and the integrity to be good.
It's about quality.
Right.
In the end, you want data that's quality that sustains even this study or trial into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So you design a process to answer the problem. So what is the problem? The problem is you design it, you get your design right, then your issue is, we just talked about collecting, right? So the problem is the collecting of the data and that top part. That goes to your integrity, right? That top part.
Yeah. So with spreadsheets, you're going to get all kinds of data. Jamie kind of touched on it earlier, talking about address as an example. If you have every single person that fills in your data, put it in a different format, you're going to have to spend so much time on the back end cleaning it. So having a way to make your data collection uniform and consistent, data formatting, force the end user down a path of how you want the data to look on the end. And that comes into the designing piece. Another requirement that we've seen a lot is to have the ability to be able to be collected from multiple geographies. With the cloud, all the products out there now, this has become a lot easier because internet access is a lot more available. Even so, though, we still have seen a lot of requirements for offline, so work offline and online in a kind of passive mode, which our product has always excelled at. Being from the agricultural industry, out in the field somewhere, there's not always internet access. So that was one of the core features that we have built into our product, so that you can check forms offline and enter the data offline, and then upload it back to the database. So another thing too is 21 CFR Part 11. It's got to be secure and compliant with that, especially if you're going and sending this data to regulatory agencies. I'm sure there's a lot of different regulations and compliance within these agencies that they got to meet. So making sure that you can defend that data and it's compliant with whatever regulations is crucial as well. Another one is being able to get data in other ways than just an end user typing in a tablet or a computer. So we're talking APIs, importing, exporting, or even just uploading documents. So those are all things to consider with collecting. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier once you're trying to get value out of the data when you're reporting.
So you've done a lot of this, like in the field stuff. You have scientists that you mentioned, right? And you know that if you can't drive that out into a place where there isn't, now with Starlink, you might be able to reach things that you couldn't reach before.
That's right.
That's cool. But even so, it isn't always available, right? So that I think that's both online and offline is critical. And I didn't realize even think about the fact that you need to be able to import and export and append things within that may be coming from different modes. That's
absolutely. So yeah, one big one is sensor data. There's a lot. I'm sure with the EPA, there's a lot of sensor data that's being collected. So streamlining those things, bringing those into a central software where you're collecting all of your other manual data and importing other data, and having it come in a clean fashion is super big. So APIs would enable that.
Very cool. I didn't think about that. That's very cool. So then managing the process and data collection. So we're talking about that. Now we're talking about the overall thing. So the next question that we have is, how do you manage your data? Are you doing it from a database? Are you pulling that stuff in and then crunching it through a database? Maybe you're exporting to Excel. We're gonna see if people are willing to tell us the truth, Jamie, because we know number 2 is probably the number 1. Custom data management software, paper and notebook. Be honest, you paper writers. There they are. I knew somebody was going to be, or some other fashion you could be. So
there's a lot of scientists love notebooks. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it. Look at this. You can't even read mine, but I write it down.
We have users who use paper and then transcribe it over. And they, because we're GLP, they have to actually say, I am now taking it from here to here to give continuity. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anybody that puts down export to Microsoft Excel, I stand with you. I don't blame you for that. Everybody loves Excel. It's, a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
But it only gets you so far,
And as long to your point, it depends on what you're doing with it as to whether or not it follows the right methodology and staying within the scientific methodology to kind of put the boundaries on, right? Because it's not like you want to restrict the scientists from answering the question. You just may want to restrict the way that they may be a little verbose. Not saying any of you scientists out there would be overly verbose.
Nope. Our goal is to have usable data, quality data down the line into the future. So, and the hope is that we all can work the way we want and be and somehow come together in that collaboration, as you were saying earlier.
Yep. All right. So here we go. 58% export to Excel.
There you go.
There you go. That's what we knew.
There you go.
But this is the reason why we're doing this, and this is why the EPA eEnterprise pilot is being created to run this upstream to say, listen, we need the scientists, the data collectors, the study managers, all the folks that are doing this work need to have a voice and be able to have it and get their information right. Because we all just want the right information, right? Isn't that what we want?
And we feel like there's actually kind of a strategy to all this, an attitude to have towards that data collection, that you're always responsible for all that data. So you take that responsibility. It's not just to get it done and get the data. It's really about its longevity, its scalability, sustainability of data. And then when asking for the data, the initial values are critical. And we found the extreme expense of doing it and having to do it twice. So, you want to measure twice, cut once. And that's why Daniel was saying design was so key. But when you've asked for something and then you find out through the responses that maybe you didn't ask the correct question correctly, you should have spent a lot more time, because it's extremely expensive to ask again. How many times have you sent an email and had to resend a new email? And besides the confusion, what it does create as far as time and money spent to do that. And a mistaken data analysis can be expensive all the way back. It's almost, I don't know, it's that constant looking at data and saying we should have done it this way. We know a lot. We're really smart people. Data scientists are amazing people. And even though they have a very singular view of trying to get their data in a certain way and report it on, you can learn a lot from them and learn a lot about a better way to do it. And if you take all those responsibilities, we feel like you could stand tall for the future.
I couldn't agree more. All right, here it is. This is the last one, at least for this part.
So we know they put them in Excel, so now we're going to find out how they communicate it.
Now we're going to figure out how you communicate it. And it really depends on who you are and where it's going, right? So you might just be piping stuff through email. And
that's right.
We all use email every day. So there's probably maybe it's an executive communication, because that's how you're getting there. Maybe it's raw data. So and I think, look, it's working. The 75% for raw data so far. That's right. And then review meetings. Obviously, you're probably going to have review meetings at some point to say, this is the data we got, and here's how we're going to leverage it, right? You're not just collecting data for data sense. You're collecting it so that you can do something with it, right?
That's right. That's right. And chances are there is a dashboard or KPI involved at some point in time. We can't tell you how many years we spent dealing with the fact that a scientist is asked to run a trial or a study or an experiment, and they go ahead and they ask for this, and they start collecting the data from sensors wherever in the field, around the world, in whatever language. And then literally they feel so good, right? They finished up Friday night. It's late. They come in Monday morning. What's the first thing their boss asks? Hey, how's that going? Can you tell me how far we've got? Or I have a status meeting tomorrow. It'd be really good if you gave me a good update.
The status meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Status meeting in 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Hey, I meant to ask you.
Dave's a 20-minute guy, that's for sure. I'd hate to work for Dave.
Hey, I'm just telling you the people I've worked for.
Yep,
hey,
yep.
I meant to ask you. What do you got?
That's right. And we've already said how we manage, in spreadsheets. Well, it still takes time to get those type of things together. So we've actually learned a lot. And Daniel may be telling us a little bit about our reporting on that.
And so we have a comment here. We keep the folder in a network location and then share them.
Yep.
That happens too, right?
That's right.
And there isn't, like we said, man, there isn't a right or wrong way. It's just a way to have it done.
Yeah.
I will say that there's a better way. There's best practices though, right?
That's right. That's right.
So speaking of best practices, we think scientific methodology is the best practice that you should use, right?
Absolutely. We believe that that scientific methodology that's used for science experiments is also a good way to approach this entire subject.
Yeah. And so managing and reviewing, communicating and reporting that data. Let's talk about when you're piping this upstream, for the folks that came in a little bit late. The eStudy platform that we're talking about, that Daniel and Jamie use, that's part of the iAdvantage software pack. That's part of underneath of iAdvantage, right?
It's our platform,
your platform. You are taking this upstream to meet with the senior folks at eEnterprise to review pilots for the folks here today. The idea is if you want to talk about how being able to collect the data so that it conforms with the eEnterprise pilot considerations. That's where we're going to be using eStudy. That's your platform, right? And so let's talk about the reporting of this. So they can get an idea of why this is so important, especially pushing it upstream.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we already touched on some major pieces here, and the first two being designing and collecting. Those two are extremely important. Most time needs to be spent there. And hopefully not much time is spent on reporting. Hopefully it's super seamless, but what good are the other two if you can't report that data out, right? So having a platform that can do all three of those seamlessly and your output is clean and it has high quality is crucial. So our product allows you to get data out in a flexible manner. So you can create report templates without the need of IT. The users can do those themselves. These can be final reports. These can be draft reports, status reports. And then we also have tools to get things out through queries, export data through APIs. So it's flexible to fit any of your needs. So like Jamie said, I got a meeting tomorrow. Dave said, I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Give me that data. If you need a status report in 20 minutes, that'll be no problem. Right. So you need to make sure that, you're able to get that data out whenever you need it. So.
And we have years with scientists in sponsor companies who all are very creative people and their minds think new ways to do things. But when you come to some reports for like the EPA, for agencies, you don't want a lot of creativity on standard reporting, especially when some of our experiments and trials and studies go for 10 years. You want to have comparable reports to the past. So it's very good that in our case, we can actually come up with templates that people reuse. It makes their life faster. It also keeps them out of being in that final report concept of trying to come up with a brand new way. And so it works, it gives that speed and dexterity that you want in this process.
I would venture to say just about everybody here has already seen a report that came from eStudy.
In some way they may have. I hope so. That would be cool. You
just didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know. Because it was generated to fill in the blanks required for EPA or USDA or FDA or maybe even some other agency, right?
That's right.
Because getting back to what you said, and I think it's really critical, getting your information in so that it can be repurposed. This goes right to the e-enterprise whole methodology. To repurpose the data, don't keep collecting the data, repurpose the data in the reports that are necessary. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the e-enterprise initiative, it's incorporating other agencies, not EPA agencies, tribal organizations, other feeder organizations. So making sure that the data is sound from the beginning is part of the critical foundation of this. So we do want to open this up for some questions about this, because this may be brand new for you. If it's your first time here, it's probably brand new for you. But we'll be talking about some of the session takeaways in just a minute. What are you using the data for, and what questions do you have? And I can say these guys are propeller heads, right? That's what and I am one too. So we can call ourselves propeller heads. Can we say that?
No, we're not you. We're just us.
Yeah,
I'm one too. I'm a data nerd.
I believe that, Dave.
I'm serious. I love the data stuff. I love it. So if you are doing the data collections, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced that you want to make sure that a pilot is going to help you solve? Do you having issues with the design side? Is it the data collection piece? Anybody want to throw in? You can raise your hand, or we can unmute you, or we can do it by folks asking questions in the chat. It doesn't matter. We love to answer those questions. And I will say this, that when we talk to folks, some of the biggest challenges that I remember is, how do you manage those remote locations? How do you do it? What's your process for data collection in remote locations? Because that was one of the key pieces that came up before. How do you manage that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's again, propeller heads. I'm trying to keep it super simple, but basically there is a process of checking out forms. So before you head out to a location, whether it be the field or somewhere that's not going to have network, you go ahead and check out the appropriate forms, notebook, whatever level, multiple notebooks, whatever data that you're going to be collecting, you check those out beforehand, and it makes them unavailable to anyone else. So you don't have any duplication of data or anything like that. And then collect the data offline. And then once you get back to network, you can go ahead and upload that data.
Here's a question. How do you restrict the parameters without eliminating what they have to be able to collect? So the question is, how do you restrict it without impacting their ability to collect the data that really needs to be collected?
Yeah, well, that's something that's got to be carefully considered when you do your designing. We have two different ways. We have something called a pick list, and it's an item type. You've seen them. Some people call them drop downs, so you can give them, multiple choice. If you know what the set of answers could be, you could use one of those to make sure that they only have available answers and they can't, deviate from that. But if you want to make it a little bit more open ended, you can format them just to be an open string, and they can basically give you any answer. But you could also, make it a date field. You can make it, integer, a single, all these things. So if you want, precision, if it's, number data, if you want, specific precision of data, scale of data, 2 decimal points, all those kinds of things, you can define those ahead of time. I do think there is some gray area because you could limit some people. One way could be to implement some sort of drop down or pick list, and then have another option, and then have another field where they could put in some, any sort of anomalies. And you could also set up triggers that would alert you if somebody or things in your report that will let you know if anybody selects other and has anomalies. So it's really important to stay ahead of that and monitor the data collection. So if you're noticing that everyone in the data collection is saying other, you probably got a problem with your design, and you probably need to go back and revisit that. So,
Yeah.
but that's something that you get better at over time, right? A lot of the data that's collected, at least with our product, and a lot of the data around the world, it's very repeatable. You're not just collecting it once; you're collecting it, 10 times a year, whatever it may be. So, every time you do that, you can kind of refine and see, based off the results that you get, you may need to make some tweaks and, increase the quality every time.
You even have to account for a person, having moving along a field and doing something on a hot day and with sun on it. You don't want them to be spelling, Saskatchewan on that sort of thing. So you have to really plan it all out on how you're collecting data and how you intend for them to answer, and you have to allow them to override it, but you also want that audibility in place. So it's sort of that's why we say design is so important. Right now, our system has what, Daniel, over 37,000 variables, and these are carefully curated variables for each of our customers to make sure that it has longevity and it's easy to do on a hot day in the middle of a field on an iPad.
So is that how you do it? You have iPads or tablets?
Yep. So we have 2 native apps. We have Windows Mobile, so you can download our app on a Windows device. So that provides the online, offline functionality, as well as we have an iPad app where you can do the exact same thing. So the iPad is the favorite. Everybody knows how to operate an iPad. They're so easy to use. But yeah, Jamie's right. We've had many occasions where, especially in Florida and really hot places, when they're collecting data in the field, they got to go under a tent, or they'll have to keep a fan on the iPad because it's so hot, the devices just can't keep up. So, having the data stored locally where you're not going to lose your data if the device turns off and crashes or whatever is very crucial.
I can imagine so. And it's wild because the scientific community, you guys are doing some amazing things and testing, and you mentioned sensors, being able to incorporate sensors into that data. Amazing things. The folks that I've been able to hear in some of the conversations that we've had. Any other questions before we jump into this and get you guys out of here? All right. Well, we'll do it.
All right.
So, takeaways. You guys are built on scientific methodologies.
That's
scientists for science.
That's the approach. It's all about the methodology. That this was a PhD driven company, and it is how we evolved. And it was a software built to meet the science. It's good design equals good data. It's a key ingredient. In the end, we want that data to be high quality. That's one of our first things I heard from our customer. One of our key customers about the past was he always could rely on the quality of data that he was getting from our system. You can't scale bad data. You can't keep growing it. It gets in the way. And so this, and of course you put on the last one is this is a chance for us to get a pilot for a
Yeah.
data collection. This is key for us, we think.
Yep. And for everybody here is that this is individual organizations within the sub-organizations, wherever you are. If you want to be part of the pilot, that's what what I'm saying is iAdvantage is taking this up to the e-enterprise level. You don't have to worry about how it's going to get procured yet. Don't worry about that. Using the different simplified acquisition contract methodologies. Let's let the guys upstairs figure that out. But if you're interested in this, if you have data to collect and you want the integrity of the data to be part of your process and included in that, we want your voice to get heard. And you're welcome, Daryl Fisher. And you were stationed at Fort Ritchie, Maryland. Oh man,
that's a beautiful place.
When I was stationed in Fort Ritchie, Maryland, data was in his head. Okay. I love it. Thanks, Daryl. That was good. So yeah, if you'd like to participate, that's great. If you have any additional questions, we'll be glad to field those. Make sure you get that email address. What you got there, Jamie?
We love hearing from smart people out in the agencies. We get an education every time we speak. So for us, it's a great opportunity to talk about perhaps what ifs.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate.
Yep. And as I mentioned before, in the disclaimer, there's no obligation to purchase from anybody, including iAdvantage. However, if you say, hey, I don't even want to pilot, I just want to buy stuff, they will sell you something and they'll make sure that you get it done on GSA or a BPA. I know that,
That's
right, guys?
Absolutely.
You don't have a problem cashing checks, do you?
No, not at all.
All right, you guys are going to get a recap email shortly. It'll be later today, early tomorrow, and then there'll be a final version if you'd like to, and we'll get that out to all the heads. We do appreciate you guys joining us, and anybody that's saying that they want the pilot or possibly want to be involved in the pilot, then hey, that'll be the next conversation that's happening. Other than that, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing this. It's a little bit different this time because of what's happening for the e-enterprise pilot consideration. So you are welcome, Narinda. That is another great name. You're welcome, Narinda. Any other last parting things that you got? Great job, Daniel. Appreciate you, man. You dumped it down for us.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
And you're welcome, Colin. You're welcome, Patrick. And everybody else, you are certainly welcome. Elizabeth, you're welcome. Allah, right? Did I do it right?
Allah. Yeah.
Like Aladdin without the din. Love it. Appreciate it. Allah. And Andrea, you're welcome. All right, fantastic. Well, we're going to let you guys get out of here. I'm going to end this poll in 3, 2, 1. Any last minute stragglers for being part of the EPA pilot, running it up the stream for the brass at the e-enterprise? All right, guys. Thanks a lot. There you go. We got that closed down.
All right.
How do you say that name? Vasudevin? Awesome. All right, Andrea, you're welcome too. Hey, Jamie, good stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your day.